Lord Jesus Christ, who calls us together today to celebrate the life of Haley Manchester III. We're going to sing Nearer, My God, to Thee, and you'll find that you have the words in the pews. There's also hymn books in some places as well, 488, and we're not going to stand. We can sing where we are, and we're going to sing the first and the last verse. Today, we are in the protective shelter of God's healing love. We are free to pour out our grief, release our anger, face our emptiness, and to know that God does care for us. We gather as God's people, conscious of others who have died and of the frailty of our own existence on earth. We come to comfort and support one another in a common loss. We gather to hear God's word of hope, words that drive away despair and move us to offer God our praise. We gather to commend to God with thanksgiving the life of Haley as we celebrate the good news of Christ's resurrection. For whether we live or die, we belong to the God who is Lord of both the living and the dead. Pray with me, please. God of all time and eternity, you know that we are never quite ready for the death of one we love. We know that you are both the giver and conqueror of life and death. So we turn to you again this day, as people have turned to you in every generation. We give thanks for Haley, for all that he was and all that he continues to be. We give thanks for your love, for him and for us. Love that will never end. Love which walks with us through the valley of the shadow of death. For this is a sad and a sacred time. Through Jesus Christ we pray for your presence and your peace as we worship and as we remember. Amen.
From Matthew chapter 5, verses 3 through 10. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are they which do hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called children of God. Blessed are they which are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven.
Reading from Corinthians 5, 1 through 8, New Living Translation, New Bodies. For we know that when this earthly tent we live in is taken down, that is, when we die and leave this earthly body, we will have a house in heaven, an eternal body made for us by God himself and not by human hands. We grow weary in our present bodies, and we long to put on our heavenly bodies like new clothing. For we will put on heavenly bodies. We will not be spirits without bodies. While we live in these earthly bodies, we groan and sigh. But it's not that we want to die and get rid of these bodies that clothe us. Rather, we want to put on our new bodies so that these dying bodies will be swallowed up by life. God himself has prepared us for this, and as a guarantee, he has given us his Holy Spirit. So we are always confident, even though we know that as long as we live in these bodies, we are not at home with the Lord. For we will live by believing and not by seeing. Yes, we are fully confident, and we would rather be away from these earthly bodies, for then we will be at home with the Lord.
2 Timothy chapter 4, verses 7 and 8. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race, and I have remained faithful. And now the prize awaits me, the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will give me on the day of his return. And the prize is not just for me, but for all. We eagerly look forward to his appearing.
Written by a Vietnamese spiritual leader, Thich Nhat Hanh.
This body is not mine. I am not limited by this body. I am life without boundaries. I've never been born, and I have never died. Look at the ocean and the sky filled with stars. Man has been stationed for my wondrous true mind. Since before time, I have been free. Birth and death are only doors through which we pass. Sacred thresholds on our journey. Birth and death are a guide of hide and seek. So laugh with me, hold my hand, let us say goodbye. Say goodbye to meet again. We meet today, we will meet again tomorrow. We will meet at the source of every moment. We will meet each other in all forms of life.
The familiar words of the 23rd Psalm is our ancient affirmation that God is fully present and in charge of us, not only through all the moments we live, but is also fully present and in charge of what happens to us when we die. From where we sit today, exactly what that life after death looks like is a mystery to us. But because God is there, we can be certain that it is real and safe and filled with a peace beyond our imagining. Be assured that Haley is in this moment safe in the arms of the God who created him. This change is far more difficult for those who are left behind, for those who must confront the reality of life without Haley after he was a part of those lives in so many different ways known to each one of you. The loss is real, and it hurts. And nothing we can say today or tomorrow or in the weeks to come is going to fill up that space inside that was emptied when you learned that Haley was really gone. But there is a way to at least to begin to move into the next season of life without him. And it starts with remembering. At this moment, remembering is painful because it only seems to intensify the sense of loss. but in Paul's letter to the Philippians, he assures us that if we concentrate on that which is pure and excellent and worthy of praise, then the peace of God will be with us. In our remembering, we make space inside for God to move us and comfort us. Faith looks forward with hope. Memory looks to the past with gratitude. Remembering the gift God gives us to help us get through this hard time. And so today, as all of you gather to mourn his death and give thanks for his life, it is in your remembering of all that was a blessing to you in Haley, all that was strong and good and unforgettable in him during his extraordinary life, that the comforting peace of God becomes present and real. Haley was a gift of God to each of you. Thanks be to God for all his days. And now, on behalf of the family, I would like to invite anyone who would like to share a memory, a comment, a thought about Haley. You may do that either where you are seated now, come forward to stand here, or come on into the podium.
I'm Steve Celio, friend of Haley's, and I apologize, it's gonna take a few minutes. If I were to say everything I had to say, it would take years. We've had years together. I wrote stuff down so I can read it and not think about what I'm saying, because it would be very difficult otherwise. So this is a speech that I obviously never wanted to give and nobody here wants to hear. But since we are here, I'm really honored to say a few words about Haley. Just I'm honored to have been a friend of his. We grew up together and have gone through almost all parts of our life together. And I've been receiving messages from mutual friends for, a while, ever since people came to find out about this disease. And they've all been sharing stories, memory, and praise. And I think one of the really poignant things that one of our friends said was, originally there wasn't a plan for this, and they said that they wanted his children to hear some of the things, that they were gonna miss the opportunity. So I'm just gonna mention a couple little things, because I think it's important for you guys to know just what your father was throughout his life before you knew him. So friends from all eras of life, elementary school, high school, college, and beyond have reached out, just showing how important he was. And they use words to describe that, like a demigod, larger than life, just an amazing friend, an eccentric genius, an icon. He really was all of these things to us. He was idolized by everyone who knew him and had the privilege of being close to him. So I've been lucky enough to have him as my best friend for over 50 years. We were basically inseparable in elementary and high school. Every first thing in our life, we were there together for, it seemed. He was just the ideal best friend. He was always there. He was so much fun. And I always say it helped a lot that he was really good looking and really muscular. So meeting girls was easy, and I never had to worry about getting my butt kicked because he always had my back. Beyond that though, he also was there for me in ways I didn't realize at the time. He was kind of the voice of reason. I was the one that always said, hey, let's do this kind of cool, stupid thing. And he wouldn't say no. He would just be like, no, let's maybe do something else. And looking back, I realized that he really was looking out for me and not trying to be, the big brother, even though I was 3 weeks older than him. But that's what it was. He was always there, sort of taking care of me. And I look back at my life, and I think he effectively, saved my life, but saved me from making some mistakes that I really would have regretted. And that sort of presence in my life has been so important to me. So we went to college together, and that wasn't by design. And then we joined the same fraternity, and that was totally by design because I probably wouldn't have gotten in if I wasn't friends with him. We made lifelong friends there. And I was always almost a little jealous, like feeling like he was gonna like somebody better than he liked me. And that never happened, thankfully. We were always just so close. But in our fraternity, Haley was revered and loved for his humor, his intellect, his devotion, his physical prowess, and above all, his quirkiness. And people would send me stories, and I can't share all the stories, but one of them, one of our closest friends, Rich, Archie, Haley was multi-talented. He was very smart, and again, an athlete, but he also was an artist, and people were surprised by some of the art he had. Some of it was quite odd, just showing his quirkiness, but he made this plaster Viking helmet that we would wear, and then gently hit each other in the head with a bat as we wore it. It provided no protection whatsoever. And that Viking helmet just kind of like was symbolic of Haley's sort of like odd things that he would do. My friend Buddy texted and just said, hey, wanted me to share that he said that his eccentricities were not understood by everybody, but those who got his sense of humor really felt privileged. And it was, a kind of an elite club. In fact, we have within our fraternity, we call ourselves the Teak Elite. And we had just this bizarre sense of humor. And a lot of people, I think, that didn't know us well, thought we were half-wits. But we just, we made each other laugh and just brought each other so much pleasure. So anyway, the whole college experience was amazing for us. And one of our very closest friends, Andy Bryan, the dude, as we called him, we were together, and he basically made a comment to me like, oh yeah, you were only this because you were friends with Haley. And I never minded being Haley's, sidekick, so to speak, because he truly was like a superhero to people. People were in awe of him, and I don't know if all of you who knew him later in life understand. He was really a larger-than-life figure to us for his personality and just his appearance, and everything about him just stood out, and it was amazing. We actually had a little conversation, and it's become it's been a half joke with us. Who was the most consequential of the members of our fraternity, in that who figures in all of our stories, who made college what it was. And in my grade, we all agreed that it was Haley. That, and again, my friend Buddy said, in the 4 years of college, we could have learned a lot more, but we couldn't have had more fun, I don't think. And that's really true. And again, that is so attributable to Haley. So after college, we were together for a while. We'd see each other regularly. I moved to Virginia. He was here for a while before he moved to Vietnam. But our friendship never faded. We would get together. He would come visit me. We would take trips together with other friends. I went and saw him in Vietnam, back before he got married. And of course, life gets in the way. And you have your, families and your responsibilities. But holidays, whenever I would come up to Connecticut, we would always look forward to seeing each other. We would spend time at each other's houses with each other's families, catching up. He was still here and I'd moved away. He became friends with my brothers. He was always like a brother to us. And he and my older brother would go out and do stuff together. Just another little anecdote, my little sister was home alone. She had a party that she wasn't supposed to have. Some people showed up that wouldn't leave, and nobody was there to help her. She called Haley. He came down, they cleared out pretty quickly. My children call these, Cousin Coy, Cousin Kim. They didn't get to spend nearly enough time together, but they understood when they came up here. It was just like seeing their own, flesh and blood cousins. So regardless of how far apart we were always, together. So Haley didn't want a lot of people to know about his disease. He felt that he would get pity, and I really fought him on this. I said, you need to let the people know that you matter too. They will just want to pour their love on you. share the old memories. And I'm so glad that he allowed some of them to do that. Not as much as they would like to, but to show how many lives he touched, how much of a difference he made to people. And I hope that that brought him some joy in those final months, to hear constantly from people about how much he went. And even, when, he wasn't able to check his phone at all, like, when I saw him, when our friend Rich came and saw him, we would read messages to him that people sent along through him. So I can't tell you how thankful I had about a year of knowing, and the way he finally told me, I can't even share the story because I will just become an absolute mess because I'm doing so well now. Telling the story about how he basically protected me in telling me about it. So through all of his suffering, Haley was stoic, as were Arlene, Ann, Courtney, Von Coyne, Kim, and just, we all saw how unfair it was, but nobody talked about how unfair it was, least of all Haley. Nobody, complained. Everybody, I think, just said, hey, we want the moments we have left to be as good as we can. I got to take a couple of trips with him that were absolutely amazing. His faith in a higher power enabled him to consider the future without fear, and he assured me to continue to be there for me, for his family, as he always has been. And honestly, every single day since then, there's been a moment where something has happened and I felt him. And it's been an obscure song I haven't heard in 30 years from our childhood, or a reference to a movie, or I'd be thinking of it, just all of a sudden a shaft of sunlight coming down. And it's so obvious that he is still there. The other night, Haley was a Raiders fan, I was a Rams fan, and we're playing. The Rams are terrible this year, so I'm not that worried about it. And I said to friends of mine, I'm okay with the Raiders winning because it's for him. And they were winning the whole game. And the Rams came back at the last minute and won the game. And I really felt, again, like that was Haley saying, you know what, this matters more to you than it does to me. And being there and always being that selfless person who would do anything, give anything for his friends. So, again, I thought, this is his sort of goodbye, but I'm like, there's never really going to be a goodbye. They're always going to be, we'll always be together. He'll always be a huge part of me, shaping who I am. He's always been a brother to me, and as I said, a brother to my whole family, a child to my parents. My dad went and visited him over in Vietnam. So I hate to say goodbye, my friend, but I'm so lucky we had 50 years with you. My life was infinitely better for you being so central to it. And I know the same is true for so many people here, including your family who you loved so, so dearly. While your body has left us, your spirit will always be here. I know we'll meet again in the future. And in the meanwhile, you better not find a new best friend. I never will. You'll always be my best friend, and thank you so much for all the memories we've had. I love you so much. And just as an example of his kind of quirkiness, my dad would like to share a little
Thank you,
thing.
Steve.
Thank you, Arlene.
Thanks for being introduced as the quirky one. Haley's spirit has the power to make the Rams win football games, and more power to all of us. We lived around the corner from the Manchesters when our kids were little, and Haley spent a lot of time at our house. In fact, we often called him our fifth son, and we frequently said, why don't you go play over at Haley's house? But they didn't. They stayed around our house most of the time. He really did integrate himself into the family quite well, and we always appreciated him. He was a happy and funny kid. We had, I don't know, I'm surmising that most of you have not visited Vietnam, but we were lucky to spend some time on a seminar there and went to see the family at their home, which was quite lovely. It was a vertical house. You came into a foyer, which was like the garage, and then worked your way up levels to the top, where they had a wonderful patio outside, and you could see the city. And we met Ron and the kids, and they were just age at that point. But as always, Haley was a charming and gracious host. When he came back frequently from Vietnam, he would stop at our house, and we always had a good time there. Haley liked to eat. He had quite an appetite. He's a big guy, and we spared no culinary shortages with him. Our abundance was his. But the story we liked the most was that he brought us a wonderful present. We called him kind of the man of mystery, because he would sort of appear out of nowhere. And we'd say, how are things going? What are you doing? And he would tell us stories about, oh, I own a couple of gas stations here, and I'm in the export-import business there. And I learned Vietnamese just casually on my own. And we didn't believe all that. We had another story, which maybe we've embellished ourselves into a wonderful espionage sort of fantasy, but we never did get corroboration of that. One thing that he did give us, though, was an Asian liqueur, which he claimed had healthful, salubrious effects. Taking this would make you feel much better. Now, if any of you are familiar with tequila, I don't know if that's true, you might know that in tequila there's often a worm in the bottle, and that's supposed to give it a little extra oomph. Well, in his elixir, there was a reptile, rather large reptile, as a matter of fact, and he would challenge us to taste it, and we did, frequently. It tasted like motor oil, but with a reptilian touch, a little reptilian bite. And we use that to introduce some of our other friends to this wonderful drink. And we had lots of times when people looked at it and were quite reluctant to join in. But we would tease them and coax them to cajole them, and eventually they'd take that sip, and their reaction was generally pretty much the same. Never take two. So I thought today, just as a gesture of remembrance of Haley, a wonderful man, I would offer the elixir to you. And when we go across the street, any of you who would like to taste the elixir, well, there's enough to go around, I think. And you're welcome. There is a little thing, the guy's still in there. This is 25 years old. It's aged like fine bourbons. My guess is that after this morning, it'll go on 26, but it'll still be there. So Haley, to you with the elixir.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Coy, Haley's son, and thank you all, friends and family, for coming out today in honor of my father. I don't really know where to begin. He's basically been with me for all my life, from all I remember. All the way back in Vietnam, we spent a lot of times on the monkey bars and playing Lincoln Logs together. Spent a lot of early mornings traveling to school, hockey games. Spent a lot of time on the road together, shared many great memories. And I do wish I could have more time to make more memories with him, but I know he's here watching over me and all of us today. And I thank him for everything that he has taught me through all my life. He's the best dad that any son could ever ask for. We miss you, and we love you lots.
I've known Haley since my son and Coy, I think Coy came to this country in, third grade or fourth grade? And my son and Coy became friends, and that's how I met Haley. And Haley and I were just always really good friends, and we make phone calls back and forth to each other all the time. And he was just so funny, and we just laughed all the time. That's what we did. And I remember, you know, at the end, we were having a conversation, and I asked him, I said, "Are you afraid?" And he said, "No, I'm not afraid." And I said, "Are you afraid to die?" And he said, "No, I'm not afraid to die. Actually, I'm looking forward to finding out what's on the other side." And he said, "And don't worry, Cap, I'll still look out for you." And I said, "Thank you, Haley." So the night that he passed away, I was lying in bed, and I said, "Haley, are you looking out for me?" And it was just like the best feeling, because I really did feel like I was privileged to know him. You know, I didn't know him as long as a lot of people, but he was just so interesting and so funny, and just such a great guy, you know. And he was my son just loved him. He would always feel like, you know, he's away in school, he's in Oklahoma, but he was very upset when he heard about Haley. And he's like, you know, he was such a great guy, and he used to just like love going over to their house and talking to Haley, you know. So it says a lot, you know, because when you've got a kid who likes an adult, and really just thought Mr. Manchester was the best. So I felt privileged to know him.
Hi, I'm Hong. I'm Bun's cousin. We grew up together in Vietnam, and I've known Haley since I was my son's age. Now, his name is also Khoi, and as a mother, I would say that my Khoi is better looking than the Khoi. But we always talk about the two Khois all the time, because oftentimes when I call and talk to Haley, it's about us driving the kids to sports, always. And he's always the one that said, Hong, enjoy the time that you have with your children, because you would miss it when you get to this point. And see, you're right, if I think of Haley, I think of him about, you know, how funny he is, his dry sense of humor. And even 3 weeks ago when I saw him in the hospital, he still made me laugh. How he did that, I don't know, but he's always very quirky and funny. And in fact, I was telling Lynn last night, I could stand up here and dance and sing, and he would still find it funny. It's just how he is. He's also very, very good in Vietnamese. He didn't just pick it up, he's quite fluent. And whenever I see him, it's always, you know, I've been here for about 30 years and I forget the language oftentimes. And when I'm with him, I usually look to him and ask him, you know, what does it mean? How do I translate into Vietnamese? He knew the politics, he knew the language definitely better than I did. It's an honor to be here with you. It's an honor to have a few weeks with Haley and his last few weeks here. I know he's a family man, always been. So I just want to leave you. If you leave here, I know Haley would want for you to bring laughs to your family. You know, it's always nice to always have a smile or two, and always think of just hug your family a little bit tighter when you come home, and think of us, and think of Kim and Khoi and Bun. And thank you, appreciate you being here today.
I'd like to say that many unusual things happened, and Haley was most unusual throughout all of this ordeal. He came home that he had had a pain in his shoulder, and he had gone to several doctors, and his blood tests were always excellent. And one day, so this may have gone on for 3 years, he told me. So you gotta remember that. That means he did well for 3 years. Now, he was driving a car, he drove me to Syracuse not long before this all was revealed to me. He came in, one doctor said, well, go to see the man who specializes in ALS, and he might have some information for you. Well, it turned out he went there, and he came in that afternoon, and he said, well, I have ALS. He's sure of it, there's no doubt. So now, I said, well, Haley, how can you be sure? He said, I have it. That's it. And he said, think of all the soldiers who go to war and come back without arms and legs, and burned faces, and we've all seen them on television, and they still manage to laugh and get on with life. Well, Haley more or less did that. He didn't laugh, but he got on with life. He made all his arrangements. He never complained. He never talked to me about it. He said, this is what I've got to do. He talked to his daughter. He made arrangements with her. His wife came, his son. They all knew that the father now had this affliction. What's interesting is his attitude toward it. Now, I can't explain things to you, I just don't know. But it was perfect. If anything, he said, I don't want resuscitation. He put everything down, everything was in writing, he printed everything up. And from then on, he just got on with it. Driving his car, going here, visiting with your friends, the Markowitzes, people all over, you know, just being very noble. I couldn't get over it. He never complained. You've got to take my word for it. And one night as I was going to bed, I said, Haley, wouldn't you, I'd stay up with him to watch a show that he liked late at night. So we'd watch it together. And then I never go to bed early anyhow. So he said, one night I said, Haley, wouldn't you like a nice hot washcloth on your face? Because I knew he's going up to wash, but I thought, this is the two of us are down there in the little bathrooms there, so you can go and heat up something. And then I said, then I said, after we did that, he said, yeah, I like that. So every night I'd wash just wipe it down with a hot rag. And then I said, how about scratching your back or something? You know, we'd pull up his shirt, and I had one of those things with like a sponge on the end that people use in the bathtub, and I used that on his back every night, and he loved that. He loved having that kind of rough sponge, you know, kind of go up and down on his back. We did that every night, and then he said, and then we happened to have, because I have a bad knee, we happened to have a stair lift, you know, one of those. And he'd say to me, now you go first. And then we'd turn, and then he'd go up second, and he got off, went into his room, did everything. This is before he went to the hospital. He could still walk. He could still chew. He could still talk. But it was going, but it was there. And then when somehow he got COVID, and that then now put, you know, the lungs can't take that. And he told Courtney one morning, he said, I can't breathe. I gotta go to the hospital. Well, it's at the hospital, you know, he loses all these powers he has, they're gone. And he came home, and I wanted him home, and he wanted to come home. That was it. He wanted to die at home, and he wanted to be with us. And thank God he came home. And he spent, I think it was 1 week before he passed. But if anybody, and I want to tell you I could tell you lots of things that are very funny about him, especially when he was a little child. I mean, really funny. But I would take all day to tell you, I'm afraid. But I was going to say this whole thing at the end, and coming home, and an odd thing happened, and I'm going to share it with you, because I think the minister will agree we never know what people see before they die, right? Now his wife came home, and what was beautiful to me was she spoke only in Vietnamese to him. I loved that. I really loved that, because he understood. He spoke it like it was his. I've never understood it but it was just like part of him. And they would talk, and she was like his doctor, and she would bathe him and so on. And Courtney would take one night staying up because the mask could slip. He had a mask on his face that would breathe for him, inhale, and exhale. And that would be dangerous if it started to, if something started to happen. It's something. Coy and Tyler stayed one night with him. Well, anyhow, the last day, he did something odd, and I'm just going to share it with you because I don't see what you think of it. You know, when you have ALS, everything becomes helpless. Your hands just, like that. The left hand, because I was doing puzzles. I couldn't talk to him, but he had the mask on, and I'd sit there just doing one puzzle after another, all day long with him, sit with him. Well, the hand moved, the left hand, but like this, and the sheet moved, and then the left leg went up a little, just a little, but they both moved, the left hand, the left leg. And then I looked over at him, and his eyes were like this, wide open. I've never seen, prior to that, under the mask, they're like this, half shut all the time. They were wide open. And he's looking at the ceiling. And he's looking at the ceiling, and he's mesmerized. He's looking and looking and looking. It's not scary. It wasn't anything you'd be frightened of or anything, but he's looking at the ceiling. Like he's watching something. He's seeing something. And like he didn't want me to bother him, because I wanted to, and his eyes didn't blink. I mean, I've never seen this before. And he was looking, and we have a rather long ceiling, excuse me. And he went, and his eyes would follow something, and this went on for a while. And then at one point, when I said, do you see animals up there? I could tell he didn't want me to bother him. He was really watching something. And then after this episode, his wife Vaughn came and was just, she just, with water and cleaning and fixing. It was just beautiful. And then she took each hand and put it into warm water, and then this one in. It was absolutely beautiful to watch. And that night, right shortly after all that, he died. But they kept the mask going, because there was there was like he might have been breathing, but he wasn't breathing, and they unplugged it and he was gone. And it was a beautiful ending. And when he left us in such a way that we were not, I don't know, I can't explain it. It's like he's still here. It's like, I saw the urn up here with his ashes. That's when I started to cry. But beyond that, it's like he's still with us. And he said, when he left that night, when the people came to take him to be cremated, it was absolutely beautiful. The way those men from, I think it's over in Windsor, took his body And have you all had enough time, you know, with the body? And we said, yes. And how they, I'm going to use the word packaged because I can't think of another word right now, but it was absolutely Shakespearean almost. I mean, the whole thing was just beautiful the way they put him in this figure of this packaging they have. And when they carried him out, and that's when I used an expression of his, I said, I love you too much. And they carried him out, his face was still visible to everybody. But I'm gonna tell you this fast though, is that all right? I don't think they have lunch ready right away. Just this, when he was a little boy, and I mean little, 3, 4, he said, whenever I had something, say, delicious and, you know, sweet and sugary, whatever you want to call it, Mom, I want more. Because you've all heard this story, I know a lot of you have. And I'd say, that's too much. I want too much. Too much became one word, too much. I want too much. Whenever he wants it, I want too much of that, too much. And so this word went on, and he had to have his Bat Masterson coat on. I don't even know who Bat Masterson is, but he had this funny little coat with kind of patches in it, and he's going out to mow the lawn with his little. He'd stay out there for 2 hours mowing our big lawn on his little, you know, tricycle, pulling something behind. It was so dear, and whenever he left the house, he'd say to me, I was at the kitchen sink, he'd be running by the back of me, he'd say, I love you too much, Mom. It was always, I love you too much. And I think that's so dear. I don't know, I just love to keep it, but too much was his little expression, and it was so dear. I love you too much. Well, we have not, he was a very good son. That's all I can say. We don't own our children, you know that, but he was just a very, very good son. And he always, he never really gave me trouble. Oh, I didn't mean he's adopted if I said we don't own them, but I don't believe that we own our children. They're lent to us for a time, and maybe one day we'll understand it all. But I think he is, as everybody says, in a better place. I had the feeling he was ready, everything happened, it happened. If he had lasted any longer, it would have been not good. It would have been worse every day. But he went when he wanted to go. And that was a blessing. It really was. And to say too, that he was no burden to us is the truth. And he was always, and I like to hear what you had to say. And Steve, I understand you're like one of the family. I mean, you know, he flew in from Virginia. The other boy flew in from Chicago. He had friends, and the friends valued him, and that's important to me, because I'm sure you learn much more, you become, you know, much more from him. There was different things, certainly, from what I learned. Just never asked for anything. It never was a problem. And I'm telling you the truth. Now, I'm sure he wasn't perfect. I'm sure of that. We're none of us perfect. And but thank you for listening, and thank you for your comments. I love them. And I know some of you would like to say things, but you know, it's kind of hard. And I wish we had a microphone. There never is one. But thank you. And I don't know what else I could say. But he was, And we'll go on with to turn around now with this knee of mine.